Welcome to Westbury Analytics Radio, where ServiceNow performance analytics for senior executives comes alive. Experienced ServiceNow architects, performance management experts, and other executives in your field share insights for how to drive performance management using the power of ServiceNow performance analytics. Performance analytics is a game changer, but it requires a different way of thinking than how most people think about reporting and performance measurement. Our goal here is to help you develop that new way of thinking. I am your host, Pedro Soto. Today I talk with Ben Brennan, who founded QSTAC to empower IT teams to deliver a world-class customer experience to every end user, every time. This energizing conversation takes you into the world of measuring and creating world-class IT service experiences.
Hello, everybody. This is Pedro Soto, welcoming our listeners to another episode of Westbury Analytics Talk Radio. Today, we're joined by Ben Brennan, an innovative senior IT leader and strategist who reliably transforms IT teams into best-in-industry, customer-centric organizations. He's the inventor of QSTAC, the metric that replaces CSAT and Net Promoter Score for world-class IT teams. And he's also the author of Badass IT Support, the top-selling book on enterprise IT culture. Today, we continue our theme of customer experience and how approaches like QSTAC are emerging to provide innovative and effective ways of measuring experience. But first, let's hear from Ben about his background and how he arrived at QSTAC. Ben, thanks for taking time to join us. Good morning. Please tell our listeners about you and QSTAC to get us started.
Hey, Pedro. Thanks, first of all, for letting me come on the pod or the radio show and chat. Definitely looking forward to that.
Sure.
So my story, I'll make it quick so we can get into the fun stuff. But like a lot of IT professionals, I started, IT was my second career, or my third, I guess. So in my 20s, I worked in outdoor education. I lived in Germany at a resort, basically being a janitor for a year. I went to grad school. I was a therapist for a couple of years. Obviously in grad school, working 3 jobs to pay for that. So I, did the service industry. And then when I was 29, I just went to Guatemala for 2 weeks, and that ended up being about like 9 months or almost a year. I just never came back. So that was kind of all of that. When I came back, to the States in my 30s, I was nice and rested, and so I entered the exciting world of being a level 1 IT help desk guy because I didn't, I wasn't licensed as a therapist in California, and my friend was into it, and it turned out to be a massively, surprisingly awesome career move for me. So who knew?
Awesome. So you become a level 1, but you have a fascinating story in Yahoo and some of the things you did there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I was lucky. If anyone's from the Bay Area, you know that around that time, it was a very good place to get a job as an IT guy, right? Most of my, my first few jobs, one was at Pivotal Labs. If you're an engineer, you might know them, but super smart company. They ended up getting acquired, but they were the same engineers. Pivotal Labs actually was an agency that built the first version of Twitter for Jack Dorsey. They built, Best Buy, like really smart people. He ended up poaching a lot of them. And then, then I got a job at a company called Jawbone, which some of you guys might know, recently went out of business, unfortunately. And then I got a job at Twitter, like full circle with some of the same guys whatever. So, and all these are basically on the same street, on Market Street in San Francisco. Like I'm on like 4 blocks from where I am right now. And, it was cool because like with somebody from no experience, I was working at companies that my mom had heard of. Right. Yeah. So, I did that. I got a job at Box, which is kind of like Dropbox for business, really cool company, right? And Yahoo. And obviously I'm getting promoted throughout this time. So I did eventually move from level 1 help desk guy to senior IT director. So, and I moved up pretty fast because I, had a lot of life experience. It turns out when you travel around Guatemala playing guitar. Somehow that prepared me for a life in IT. But on a serious note, like to what you said, the reason that I imagine you asked me to come and chat with you, Pedro, is that we've had really, really amazing success at the bigger companies. At the smaller companies, it was easy. You're in hyper growth. When I started at Twitter, we only had 2 other IT people. So like you got to hire 27 more. Wow. You're able to kind of control that. But, with bigger companies, I think most IT leaders can relate to the fact that you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want, right? So, when I went to like Box and Yahoo, 14,000 20-year-old search engine company had, a different vibe than, like Twitter or the younger companies did, right? So I was like, well, I was tasked with bringing world-class IT support to a 20-year-old organization stuck in its ways. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And so, we invented QSTAC, which is a new metric we'll talk about later. And then it just, it turned just this data was so powerful. Again, not me. I was, like I said, I've only been at this point, I'd only been in IT for 7 years, and, I was probably better at guitar than fixing computers, so it wasn't my genius. It was me understanding math and the scientific method and using data to transform these teams, and in a way that my, passionate pep talks could never do. And we were so successful at Yahoo. I mean, we turned them we have this amazing graph that goes straight up and to the right, from like a mediocre IT team to literally best in industry customer experience scores. Then we got acquired by Verizon. We got smashed together with AOL, another 20-year-old company with a 20-year-old culture. And, and Tumblr and TechCrunch and Huffington Post, all of these companies smashed together. And so the graph obviously goes down, and then we just kept on using that data, and it transformed the rest of the company. And it did the same thing at Box. And this tool that we made ended up being so powerful that I quit my job, and now, as of 3 months ago, I am, running QSTAC for a living, just getting to do the fun math part and not having to, do the people management part. Do I miss that as well?
Yeah. So let's dive into the QSTAC, because that's another fascinating conversation. Now, I know you have some strong views about CSATs, surveys, and typical metrics around customer experience. So tell us what they are and how you arrived them, right, to this experience you had, and then take us into QSTAC, what it's all about.
Right. And so, as I kind of mentioned, I came in to IT with a different, a different background. And so for me, what I was passionate about that actually ended up really propelling my career was customer experience and really good data. So, I had the luxury of like 7 years studying psychology, and statistics, which isn't the most exciting thing, but it really does teach you how to measure things like behavior and experience, and in a scientific way, not just a, intuitive way or like getting a CSAT survey. And then the fact that I was passionate about customer experience came in handy because around this time, about 10 years ago, everyone in IT was realizing the same thing. We need to start providing a badass customer experience. That's part of the value we now have for our employees. Otherwise, they're not going to, interact with us, and we're not going to be able to make them productive. So, but we struggled. So like every IT department I consulted for, in their mission statement, they'd have what? To provide world-class service.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So what's world-class service? Like what, white glove service? Okay, well, how do you measure it? Really? Then it kind of failed out. And then, I'm like, well, let's look at numbers. What are we measuring? And you know this as well as anything. There's like 9 million metrics, right? So there's like, they showed me this 3 dashboards full, which I love dashboards and I love data, right? But 3 dashboards full of data, and I'm like, cool. Where's the success metric? And they're like, oh, well, whatever. Or maybe they'll try to, wait ticket times, but we tried everything. Is it, well, let's look at ticket count. We had ticket count contests all the time. The intern would win because he would just pass out mice and keyboards and get a ticket for each one. So, obviously not a great metric, right?
Right.
CSAT, I was like, okay, cool. Well, we have a tool to measure customer satisfaction. The problem with that, besides the fact that, these days being satisfied isn't that exciting, the math and, you can, and Pedro, we haven't really talked about this, so feel free to disagree if you want, but to me, the math of just like averaging, a bunch of smiley faces together or, like, were you satisfied? It's never resulted in really badass world-class customer experience, and I remember working for this company, which I will not name, but, a big over 10,000 person company that we've all heard of and probably all have accounts at. And we came in and, me and my colleague we were brought in to make the help desk more approachable because there were complaints, right? People were complaining about the help desk. So I came in and, the IT leaders of that company all got together, they had this little pitch deck of this slide deck, and they go to the slide for the CSAT surveys and basically mic dropped. It was like 2 years straight of 99 or 100 CSAT, like perfect CSAT scores. And they were like very proud of ourselves. And I look at my colleague and we kind of start laughing. And I'm like, well, the only thing that's showing me is that this is a really terrible way to measure customer satisfaction because like the CEO is paying us a lot of money to fix this. So, I mean, obviously you're not perfect, right? And CSAT, while it's, I totally understand, the benefits of like learning things you don't know, and you can find out, individual things where your skill gaps are with your technicians. But man, my job was to turn Yahoo and, AOL into world-class, literally best in industry teams. I needed some math to honestly and accurately measure customer experience. And also I needed some data to make the decisions by, because when you're doing a transformation, you don't have a lot of time for bad decisions, and when you have to make a decision you're not sure about, you need data really quickly afterwards to course correct in case it's not right. That's transformation is hard, and that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, so the comment you made about the measuring the average of the smileys, what we have seen, what we have seen in the past several years with the introduction of more capable tools is that up until, for about 20 years or more in the IT world, we've been conditioned to a very superficial, unidimensional, flat view of the world through operational reporting. Number of tickets, number of new tickets, number of closed tickets, MTTR, mean time to resolve. And with new tools, like we operate very much in the world of ServiceNow, who has this tool called Performance Analytics, you now take that flat view of the world and explode it into multi-dimensional, multi-context, multi-persona perspectives. And so I can see in your trajectory how you come up against this CSAT, very, again, unidimensional, flat, superficial measurement of experience. And you discover that you have to explode it and apply more variables, be able to track more things that actually truly tell you the state of the experience, right? And that's what I hear you describing.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to match the customer experience, right? So CSAT, and I've done this for so long, and I speak and I write on this topic, so I hear everyone talking about this. Kind of the secret is, there's no other really tool to measure. Some people are using NPS. I know IBM and the Apple Retail Store actually used it very successfully, but most IT departments, it's hard to use that. There's this guy, Jeffrey, I can't remember his name. If you want, I'll email it to you later. He's doing some really cool writing for HDI about, mashing together like NPS and customer effort score and, CSAT service together. So there's a million ways to do it. But for me, what I needed to do, I was working for companies that cared about one thing, right? Customer experience. And we wanted a best in industry customer experience, because even though Yahoo was an old culture, my CIO was really progressive. And he said, we want the most productive workforce on the planet. So to do that, we needed to be the absolute best. And to your point, we need to, the tool needs to really be dynamic and at the end of the day, be accurate. I need something that accurately reflects what the customer experience is, right? So my problem with the CSAT was, you could game the system and you could be a very mediocre team with a perfect CSAT score, whereas, like it doesn't have enough teeth, and so we actually, we spent months and months researching QSTAC and, again, not for everyone, but for teams that are really into this Ritz-Carlton best in industry customer experience.
Yeah.
We found it works really well, but you got to know your culture also, you know what I mean? Like it's not every culture is the same.
So can you tell us a summary, or, how would you describe QSTAC? How is it different?
Yeah, 100%. Sorry. First of all, QSTAC, there's no K, QSTAC.
Yeah, right.
And so QSTAC.com. There's also a QSTAC with a K that we won a trademark battle with. So they didn't get to squash us, but they're a very nice company, very cool company, but completely different offering. So, but QSTAC, and that's actually an acronym for the 5 dimensions we measure. So quality, speed, accuracy, communication. Quality, speed, technical knowledge, accuracy, and communication. That's actually why I came up with the acronym, so I could remember it when I was doing talks like this. But basically, the 4 problems I wanted to solve with QSTAC, and I'll make this as quick as I can. So as a leader, if you think about being a little more like progressive, loosey-goosey, artisty, fun, startup-y, and then going to like a 20-year-old search engine, third search engine culture, like I was hitting these problems, right? So I guess 4 problems would be, how do you explain world-class customer experience to technicians who we don't pay enough to fly first class, stay at the Ritz-Carlton, eat fine dining? How do you explain that? How do you explain to someone who hopefully we pay them well, but probably doesn't make enough to eat at the places that as the executives they're supporting, right? So how do you explain what a world-class experience is to them? Like, how do you get the vision that you have in your head? Like as leaders, we have a vision, right? And we try to communicate that, but how do you get the vision that you have in your head to be adopted by everyone? So they not only know about it, but they understand and agree with it, right? And that's hard, typically buzzwords don't do it. If I go to a bunch of, hardworking, really smart IT nerds and I say, listen, we're looking for synergistic, confluences of whatever, they're going to roll their eyes and
after they gag.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't work for everybody. And then, the third issue was how do you measure customer experience objectively? Like, how do I know objectively how I'm doing so I don't have to spend time arguing about how good we did, like very often, the idea that wins is whoever the boss likes most or whoever has the highest title. Yeah. How do we make the decisions that matter to the customer? And then finally, just how do we make changes? And this is a little more personal to Yahoo. I'm sure a lot of you guys have very progressive cultures, but for me, in my experience, IT people can be a little change averse, Yeah. And so you hear a lot of, we've always done it this way, or, hey, we tried that before, it didn't work. So as a consultant, they're kind of right not to listen to me. 200 IT people are not going to listen to a random, I've got long hair, I look like Jesus. They're not going to listen to a random hippie consultant telling them how to meet their customers. So how do you make those changes in an org that's hard to change? And what we did was we spent about 3 or 4 months just researching surveys in general. And I'll do another plug for HDI, Help Desk Institute. It's it is an old school organization, but they have I downloaded all these white papers from them, and they were really helpful in figuring out QSTAC, right? So I just put on my statistics hat again and just downloaded all these white papers, and I was like, whoa, people actually study this stuff. So I did analysis of variance for all you statistics nerds out there. I actually did a NOVA on the different things, and we started with 30 dimensions. And, from the HDI literature and everything else I learned, you want to find, you don't want to measure things that are already being measured, right? You want to simplify it as much as you can, right? So the ANOVA actually broke it out into, 5 not minimally overlapping categories, that matter to customer-centric IT orgs, and these are quality, speed, technical knowledge, approachability, and communication, And what we found over 160,000 surveys and 5 years, of these companies is that if you focus on those articles, and then we obviously, we did a lot of math to figure out the QSTAC algorithm that kind of, it's kind of like similar to NPS in a sense, it's just some secret sauce that turns customer responses into a score that accurately reflects the feel of it. So the reason we get so much buy-in into QSTAC is because it works. So if your team gets a 50 on the QSTAC and then the next week they get a 70, or the next quarter they get a 70, it will feel 20 better, and so the executives, it's not just a boring graph where they're like, oh, whatever. The executives will see the graph and they'll be like, you know what? I did notice that things have gotten better. And, just that accurate tool and measuring the right things, we stumbled on, to be honest, we kind of captured lightning in a bottle, and I really did it just to make my job easier. But over time, I got kind of inspired. A lot of ex-Twitter people work at Slack. And so I've been to Slack a few times, and I'm inspired by their story. I don't know if you're familiar with, but they were trying to make video games. And they weren't making great video games, but this little tool that they used to communicate, to avoid email, communicate internally was really dope. And so, they're like, fine, we'll be a bazillion-dollar chat platform instead. And they went public, and, the rest is history. And so, to me, that was it. I feel I was a good people manager. You probably want to reach out to my direct reports to ask if that's the case, but I felt like I was really good at leading, armies of IT people. But stumbling on this tool, this QSTAC that actually changed these teams was amazing. And I'll quit talking after just saying this. Here's what I love about it. Not just that it's accurate, but when you provide world-class IT support for your company, when you're able to say literally, you guys are the best in the world at what you do, it's amazing. Like, you go from being an IT guy that's not always IT girl or IT guy, not always the most prestigious career, to being like the best in the world at something. And you end up like Yahoo won, I think, 4 national awards, including 1 runner-up and 1 actual winner of Technician of the Year. We got like improvement awards, all this stuff. Everyone went on to most people went on to different teams internally in the company. Everyone's making more money. Everyone's happier, and the change it makes, I had 50 people under me, it's not changing the world, but I can honestly say that because of QSTAC, those 50 people are making a little bit more money. They're happier with their jobs, and they're better prepared to go off and lead orgs at other teams. And I think that to me makes it worth all the research and stuff we did makes it worth it. And that's why I want to tell other people, listen, use data. Don't use your hunch doesn't work. I'm sure you're very experienced, but the right thing is often counterintuitive. But if you find the right metric and you're accurately measuring customer experience and holding ourselves to a world-class standard, you'll be surprised and frankly blown away at what the team that you already have can do. And I've seen it a million times.
That's awesome. So hunch versus data, real clear. Leave the hunch outside the office, work with data, right?
Yes. And your hunch might be right, but prove it, because, and it's, it just saves so much time too, because again, sometimes the best ideas come from, the intern or the tech in the corner who, maybe isn't the most friendly or doesn't, isn't kissing the boss's butt the whole time. So, you miss so many good ideas, but if you're using data, you give your customers a voice at the table. So rather than just guessing what's going to be good for them, you find out from them ahead of time, and then you do it, and then you measure that, and you find out if it worked or not. How did that video conference rollout work? Our communication scores are up, and if you drill down on that in the QSTAC, they're all talking about how great it was. So yeah, we did well. Okay, well, how did this new technician service training go? Well, our approachability actually went down 20 points, so it looks like we screwed the pooch on that one, so we should probably retool that, And data is a total cheat. It's a way to, it's like a superpower. Like, it just makes you smarter. Like, if you have good data, your job is so much easier.
So, Ben, I hear you using QSTAC very much for the service desk. Have you employed it, for instance, in measuring what's the perception on the effectiveness of projects and the whole project management office in an IT group, or is it so far been proven pretty much exclusively in the service desk area?
So that's a good question. I'm focusing on the service desk, but there is a really cool thing that happens. And if anyone's lucky enough to have been on a world-class team, what you realize is once you fix everything about your team, customer experience is more than just the guys at the help desk, right? Customer experience is also like the tools that you use and stuff like that. So what you'll see, and it's kind of like bittersweet because, you know, you'll have these teams that are just nailing it and they're doing everything they're supposed to do. And, you know, you get the QSTAC results back and you get dinged for stuff that's not your fault, right? And so obviously my technicians, very proud and competitive, will say, listen, we need to strike that score. You know, that's talking about the intranet, or that's email. That's not our department. But what I tell them, you know, is what I find to be true. World-class teams, they take ownership. You know, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, but that's one of my favorites. And I gave it to all my managers a couple of years ago. Like own it. So these, you're in charge. You are on the front lines. The systems administrator, or like, you know, the client engineering team, they're not interacting with end users on the day-to-day. You're their advocate. Right. So, you know, we go through and we find all the things that are not, that are not addressed out of our zone, and we just take it up to the CIO. And what's amazing is that the QSTAC, because it's such a simple tool and accurate, it tends to get adopted pretty quick. So usually it's carried as an OKR by, you know, the CEO and the CIO, just because it's like a very simple, easy way to measure, you know, the IT operations. And so, you know, we'll go up to our CIO and say, listen, you know, we've done what we can do, but the remaining 10 points, if we want to get to world-class experience, we got to fix this. We have to have one video conferencing system, not 4. You know, we need to have a less confusing chat thing. We need to have better whatever. And so while this is targeted to IT support, what I find is that once you fix everything, and also because the IT support has gotten so good, it's very strange, but all of a sudden the help desk is like a cultural leader in the IT org, which is a weird thing, but it happens every time, you know, because there's such a change. And then so you start to get buy-in from those folks. That said, I do have, if I can plug a company that's almost like a competitor, but I really like them, IT Happiness by a company called Horizon. I haven't used them yet, but I love the idea of it through this Dutch company that they measure just the IT happiness of like the whole digital workspace, where IT support is just a tiny sliver. So I think there's tools like that to do too. But in my experience for QSTAC, it's really easy. You fix what's in our control first, and then you've built up the goodwill and you have the data to come through and say, hey, well, if you want this graph to go up, you know, you got to talk to this team. And it's kind of, with data, it's a lot easier than just like, you know, complaining about, you know, it's not a sysadmin's job to understand customer experience. You know, it's their job to run a system. So it's our job to kind of use the data to paint the picture so they know what the customer needs. And then it gets everyone involved. And our CIO at Yahoo actually got to the point where everyone had to carry the QSTAC score. So it wasn't just me as IT director, like for the IT support team, like everyone, like the whole org carried it. So if our QSTAC score was dropping, you know, we all had to come together. And when you put everyone in charge of customer experience, the accountability is really nice for everyone.
Yeah, and everybody, you know, putting in effort, you can really move that big rock. Definitely.
So some really good things here, right? Data versus hunch, or data over hunch, or data to validate hunches. Be open to new innovations like QSTAC. What are some other pieces of advice that you would give to business leaders in IT who are responsible for the customer experience, for managing it, for measuring it, for improving it?
Okay, that's a great question. I don't know if I talked about it before earlier on today, but something I've been really talking with all of my companies about, and I actually just wrote an article that'll be coming out in a couple weeks about it on HDI. It's called the like defining success, right? How do you define success? And like at Yahoo, the same company that we took twice to literally best in industry customer experience scores. When we started, you know, I asked the management team, you know, what does success mean for our team? and they couldn't even,
Yeah.
their answers were all over the place. Not bad, because guess what? I would be surprised if you ask the people that you work with, if you're listening and you're an IT leader, like, or even an IT technician, ask your team, like, what is success for our team? Like, so many people text me. I've had no BS. I've had probably already this year 3 random managers from different companies text me complaining that they don't know what the vision is for the department, right?
Yeah.
So defining success, and it's ask the question, and then, if everyone's answer is different, great news. You now know an easy way to become way better. Get everyone on the same page. So I imagine you'd agree with me. I don't know. I love defining success numerically because, again, rather than the buzzwords or whatever, I like saying, on the QSTAC, world class is an 85. That's like the world class benchmark for a QSTAC, right? So we define success clearly, but regardless of whether you're some organizations, it's really about like, the average cost per ticket, or, everyone has a different metric, but define success. And if you clearly define success in a way that, can I drill deep on this a little more and not be
Sure.
short on it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
No,
cool.
we're good.
Okay, good. So I know I talk a lot, but so defining success is, obviously, it's easy to say, well, yeah, you have to define success before you reach it, but it's more than that. Like, if you think about, you're managing, I had a team of 50 people. I'm sure a lot of you guys have smaller teams or bigger teams or whatever, but in my head, I had to define success for those people in the sense, I'm not micromanaging them. That's the opposite of my management style. But if you think about it, every technician comes in and probably makes 350 decisions a day, all these little micro decisions. How do you really define success for them so that all of their decisions are going through,
Right.
Going through that lens and everyone's rowing in the same direction, I've known so many teams that are loaded with talent, but everyone kind of has a different plan and they never really get to world class,
Yeah.
So what I would say is really define success for your team and spend some time on it. Get something that you really believe in and something that is meaningful and matters to your customers. And when you define success, make sure that it's measurable. This sounds basic, but I guarantee you, there's a bunch of people listening right now that have world-class IT support in their mission statement, and they have no idea how to measure that.
Yep.
Find a way to measure that works and cultivate that. And then there's 2 things for your managers. You need to teach them a principle called disagree and commit. Now, this is something that Christopher Lochhead has an amazing podcast, and apologies for not knowing which, there was this amazing, I think she was a CMO that he was interviewing for Splunk or something. I'll get back to you. But this idea of disagree and commit was amazing, because as managers, you're not always going to agree. When I come in and say, hey, we're going to use QSTAC and we're going to, toss all the other metrics for a couple of quarters and just focus on that, your managers, it's their job, even if they disagree, they talk it out, but then they need to commit and go all in, right? For the vision. But for the technicians, it does not work for a technician who's working really hard to like shove something down their throat. You need to give them something that they can understand. If you're a manager, yeah, disagree and commit. I need you to work hard. If you're a technician that is kicking butt every day, day in, day out, it's our job to communicate to them. And so, for me, again, like, while I might have a flowery mission statement or whatever, everyone on my teams know the mission. The mission is to get an 85 on QSTAC. And when you do your training with your technicians, just train towards that, and the one trick I'll tell, and then I'll be done. But, this tends to help things click with our, especially our more old school IT people. You're like, well, how do I, we're very trained, again, by CSAT, customer satisfaction. Well, everyone's satisfied. We're trained to be good. If you are a company that needs your IT support to be next level and world class, that's a hard thing to teach in how you do it. So what we do is you just shadow someone for a day, and every time that they interact with somebody, you talk to them afterwards and say, now, if that person, takes a survey or something right now, are they going to skip over average and skip over good and say amazing? Or are they going to be like, oh yeah, he's good? Or, are they going to skip over, amazing and say good, And it's that little bit that you don't, I'm staying at the new Virgin Hotel in San Francisco. Amazing customer experience. This has been awesome, you know. But you know, a lot of our technicians don't get to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. They don't get to stay at the St. Regis, you know. And so, you know, maybe they've never had that, you know, that first class wowing experience. But if you just get it through their head, so what we're measuring is, you know, what people say, you know, on a QSTAC tool or on a survey, you know. And if you do that, they'll start thinking about it. And every time they interact with somebody, because listen, as an IT guy or an IT girl, you know, you go to work, it doesn't matter if your boyfriend broke up with you or your cat's sick or you're feeling gross, you have to be on and just thinking every time, how do I throw the icing on the cake? Somebody comes in, we get off on the wrong foot, you know, kind of fix the problem, but I'm not really sure. They're about to walk out and just have an average or just a good experience. Stop them and say like, okay, hey, Jennifer, just to make sure, like, here's the plan. Are we good on this? And is there anything else I can do? And I don't know, give them a cool monitor, you know, do something to do the cherry on top. And when you do that, it's not just making things happy. What you're doing is you're creating this experience that helps them go back, rather than going back complaining about IT, they can feel confident that anytime they need something, they can go and have a good experience. I've had teams where literally the IT support team, the help desk team, was a cultural leader in the whole company. Executives would come hide from their assistants in the little walk-up window just because it was a cool vibe. And I know that doesn't sound like IT, but I'm telling you, man, your customers will love it if you get to that point.
Yeah. No, one of the things I'm fascinated, it's as I reach out to thought leaders like you, is that this whole idea of creating experience really continues to bubble up in the consciousness, okay? Because delivering service is like such a blah thing. Yeah, okay, yes, you're delivering service. That's what you're doing. But the result is to create an experience for every person that comes in contact with you. And when I saw your presentation in the HDI virtual conference and where you shared that whole story about Yahoo, I really wanted to get you on the show because you have defined success, right, through QSTAC. And that's one of the biggest things that we have to work with when we go into a customer to help them implement an analytics program is defining the objective, defining the business goals. And believe it or not,
exactly. And it's different.
That's the beginning.
Different for every company too. Yeah. So you can't even say like, what sucks is like, I wrote a book called Badass IT Support, but I couldn't write a book called Here's What to Do because it's different. That's like why you need data from your user base to understand. Like it's I would love for it to all be cookie cutter, but it's really not.
Yeah. So that was exactly. That's where it starts. And the tendency is because again, we have 20, 30 years conditioned in the IT world of doing operational reporting. Every conversation starts with, okay, I want my dashboards to have these KPIs. And we're like, wait. We'll get to KPIs in a moment. Let's define the outcome, which in your scenario, it's let's define what success is for your organization, for your situation, all that stuff. And then from there, things flow. Ben, it's been exciting. It's been really cool for having you share your experience, your stories. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. Go ahead and tell our listeners to close here where they can find you and if they want to connect with you. Also share anything exciting on the horizon that you like to leave them with. They can reach out to you.
Sure. So first of all, I wanted to thank you both for letting me talk too much on the show, but also to me, it actually really excites me to know that there are people out there using data the right way and understanding that, data is not just like a chart to show your CEO, but like it's meaningful. Yeah. Don't just like say, well, these are the KPIs I always use, but like reverse engineering success. And I love that, man. I was like, that to me as an IT leader is awesome. So I really love like-minded people that understand that, data, all data is not equal, right?
Yeah.
So that first, we all like in computer class as kids, we all learned like garbage in, garbage out, and I think we all forgot it. You know, like you can have a data-driven strategy based on, you know, like driven by the wrong data. It's like, you know, a car driven by my dog. Like my dog's awesome, but he shouldn't drive a car, you know, and some data is interesting, but it shouldn't be driving your strategy. So, but to answer your question, but sincere thanks for letting me be on the show. To answer your question, if people want to reach out to me, the site is QSTAC.com. We are taking, we're doing our first 5 customers, and we're really excited. We actually have at least one heavy hitter that's going to come on. So I'll look forward to announcing that when we get all the paperwork signed, but I don't want to screw it up by talking about it. But we'll have a couple names that you've heard of, and we're also doing some smaller startups. But we do have, I think right now we have 2 slots open. So especially if you want to learn about QSTAC, go to QSTAC.com, QSTAC.com. You know, click on demo. You can schedule a demo right from the site. You can hit me up at ben@qstac.com. And, you know, just directly LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/in/Ben Brennan. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys and love to help people. Like in 2020, you know, in 2019, I got to have one of my last all hand meetings be where I announced for the second time for this Yahoo team where I was senior director, that they had officially reached, you know, world-class caliber scores. And this is a 4-year journey. This is not like easy. Again, the QSTAC is not like, you know, you don't fix it overnight. But 4 years being able to tell these people that that I worked with day and night that they were literally at that moment the best at what they did for a living, that made parting ways a lot easier. You know, I'm like, you guys obviously don't need me. You guys are good to go. And in 2020, I want to be able to do that to a lot more companies. So we're looking for our first 5 customers to really, the app's actually ready, but you know, it's good, single sign-on and everything, but we want to just start slow, get our first 5 customers, and really develop the app. And so if you're one of our first 5 customers, again, there's 2 more slots. In 2020, you also get free consulting, which other companies who I won't mention have paid over $200,000 a year for. So it's a really good time to check QSTAC out. And yeah, if you also, you know, we also do consulting. We do like a 1-day training about, you know, based on the Badass IT Support book. Oh yeah, and if you like books, Amazon, look for Badass IT Support. And I think that's about all the plugs I have in me.
All right, excellent. Ben, it's been a treat. It's been a hoot. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll have to talk again down the road, see how things have gone.
Absolutely. Keep in touch, Pedro. I really enjoyed the time. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Pleasure to have you on. Thanks.
We see a time when all business leaders using ServiceNow Performance Analytics will easily know how to leverage its power to help them reach their business goals. Performance Analytics offers you a way to do that. To discover how you can get there faster, send us an email to info@westburyanalytics.com.